I'm Kyle Dyer. I'm the Program Leader for the MSc in Addiction Studies, the MSc in International Addiction Studies, which we offer by distance learning. I'm the Technology Enhanced Learning Lead for the IOPPN, and I'm also the Academic Lead for the Understanding Drugs and Addiction MOOC, which was the first MOOC developed by King's College London on the FutureLearn platform. Understanding Drugs and Addiction was a 6-week course, and the course was designed to describe the journey into addiction, the use of drugs, the effect of drugs on the brain and how addiction develops, the consequences of addiction, and then the journey through recovery. And we also finished the MOOC by looking at future directions for addiction science and theory. Each week required approximately 2.5 hours maximum, but we designed this MOOC in a way to be a little bit more creative, and so that if learners only wanted to engage for a few minutes per week, that indeed was okay. So there were approximately 15 steps per week, and a step is a learning activity. This might be a video lecture or an article to read or a multiple choice question exam or so forth. And learners ticked complete as they moved through the course. We presented the material though in a very creative way, I felt, that allowed us to meet the diverse needs of such a diverse student group. We started each week with a very plain English overview which I presented, where I described the material of the week in a form that was accessible to the general public. We then followed up the overview with a series of short video lectures, each around 7 minutes long, presented by experts in their field on that particular topic. And these presenters came from across the IOP. Each of the lectures came with a written transcript, so people could have the words appearing on the bottom of the screen if they wished, in the form of subtitles. Now, the lectures were presented in front of a green screen and to camera, and that allowed us to add what we call dynamic text, which is text would appear behind the presenter that reinforced the key learning messages of that lecture. We could also use some nice graphical background and so forth. A few bespoke animations were created, and we tried to reuse those animations at various points throughout the MOOC just to save some costs. But the key point of those lectures was always the quality of the teaching. So these animations and dynamic text reinforced the learning that was being provided by the presenter. They worked together and the whole was greater than the sum of the parts. After the video lectures, we might have a multiple choice question, and you'd be surprised how much engagement there was with that. People really do enjoy testing their knowledge, testing that they've learned, and so the multiple choice question tests were very popular. We then had what was called research showcases. Now, this is where we presented research that was current in the IOP, that was assigned to or associated with the learning objectives for that week. We were then also very fortunate to have a drug user who described her story into addiction, from her first use of alcohol and glue and so forth, through the harm that she experienced with her drug use, through her journey through treatment and into recovery. And she was very forthcoming and a really great and engaging speaker. We were experienced with delivering face-to-face lectures. I'm experienced with distance education. But then I found myself thinking about 11,000 people potentially being on the discussion boards and watching. And so myself and the teaching assistants who helped me moderate the discussion boards, I think on those first few days we were really uncertain how best to engage the learner. And we were aware that we couldn't possibly respond to every single post that was made. There were over 17,000 posts made on the MOOC, and indeed on the first day there were 1,000 posts on the discussion board. And I think the first thing that we learnt was that we had created an environment of learning and that the discussion board was actually quite autonomous. When we moderated, we took a very soft and gentle approach. The learners weren't needing us to answer questions. Our job was to facilitate discussions and to help learners critically appraise what they'd posted. What we did is we recorded the number of posts per hour made by, per day made by the learners. And we can demonstrate that when we became involved in helping present evidence and to stimulate discussion, the amount of engagement increased. So it goes to show that rather than this being a fully autonomous discussion board, we do need to engage with the learners, but we need to do so in a way that is more gentle, not directive, not didactic certainly, but rather allows the learners to communicate with each other. And so it was this interesting mix of a semi-autonomous space where our involvement was one of guides as opposed to didactic teachers. Now, what's been really interesting looking at the data is that there were some students who engaged with each of this material sequentially. They started at step 1 and worked their way through step by step by step. But there was a significant proportion of learners who went to the overview lecture first or second, and then the personal story. And then, if they were interested in that material, might try and look at a few of the lectures or read a little bit of the material. Now, I found that very interesting in that the autonomy for learning was with the learner. In terms of numbers of students enrolled, well, when we delivered this course, FutureLearn, the platform that we've delivered on, was still at beta phase. So we were originally capped at 10,000 enrollees. We ended up enrolling just over 11,500 people onto the course, whilst the platform was on beta. And of that number, approximately half engaged with the course. That is, that they came and saw a few of the lectures and marked complete. Of those, though, over 25% were what we call active or fully participating learners. That is, that they completed the majority of steps and all of the assessments. Now, from that, we've done quite well in that we've apparently sold more certificates of participation than other MOOCs. We've had quite a lot of interest in our courses here at the IOP. We've had over 180 inquiries about our talk course and our distance education course and whether we offer other online courses. And we've had 3 enrolments in our talk course MSc and 3 enrolments, or 3 applications I should say, in our distance education MSc. As we repeat the MOOC, the cost of developing the MOOC begins to be neutralised. Each of the lectures that we've created we can repurpose and recontextualize as reusable learning objects. So they improve and the experience of our talk courses across the IOP. And that's one of the benefits of this being a collaborative MOOC, in that there's a lot of departments and courses now who have benefited from participating in this course. When we delivered the MOOC, I took a very research perspective to it. So I collected a lot of data which we are still analysing. In the new year, we will be repeating the MOOC, so it will give me the opportunity to look for a reliability in those findings. So, for example, how did learners engage? At what point did they disengage with the course? Did they drop out? What can we do there to help maintain retention and so forth? Who were the learners? How did they engage with the material? Was it linearly, or was it based on their interests and so forth? So looking to the future, we're going to be poring over this data, and I think there's a lot we can learn. I'm sure we can create a pipeline. I'm sure we can create a learning pathway from MOOCs through smaller, more specialised open online courses, or vocational open online courses, if you like, through short courses that might eventually lead to enrolment in our undergraduate programs and in our postgraduate programs. And it's looking at how we use MOOCs to engage with the community as well as with our markets that I think is going to be the really exciting future for MOOCs and for King's. Now, I do think that MOOCs represent an important development in higher education, and I just think it's right and proper that King's should be right up there, leading the way, exploring, developing and creating.